One day, I joined the Navy. It was the Navy Reserves, but that didn't stop everyone I knew from being alarmed, confused, or horrified by my decision. Most of my friends and family were either opposed to the military or completely uninterested in it. My mother was horrified, which is an understatement. She'd had an unsuccessful stint in the Navy in her early 20s, and she came out a nonconformist, co-op joining, war protesting, Jesse Jackson loving hippie. My father, on the other hand, was pleased. In fact, he was proud. He too had been in the Navy and loved it. He'd been a cryptologist on a ship near Morocco, which seemed like the most exotic life anyone had ever known. I wanted to do it too. He told Navy stories and still knew every stanza of Anchors Aweigh by heart. He came to visit me right before I went to boot camp to give me pep talks and share a few survival tips and more or less relive his younger days. We had beers together at the waterfront, and I remember feeling like we were old cronies. It was the first time I'd ever hung out with my father as a peer. This is significant because I've always known that I was a difficult child, not just when I was an actual child, but continuing long into adulthood. Like still. Now. Today. I was always broke, lonesome, misguided, dating someone lame. Dad never acted disappointed in me, but it's impossible that he wasn't. Years later, I still wonder why I went into the Navy, but when I was drinking with my dad, it felt as if I had finally done something right. I was in the reserves for 4 years, and it was less action-packed than I expected. One weekend each month, I wore a uniform and worked for the Navy. I got paid, but not much, and I was trained to do nothing more technical than sort personnel files and do calisthenics. After 4 hours of these heroic activities, we all took a break and ate corn dogs at Hometown Buffet. Then I returned for more filing. Having been indoctrinated by this gung-ho, storm the Bastille mentality by my recruiter, performing the mundane tasks of an underutilized secretary was disappointing. If it hadn't been for Petty Officer Fletcher, I never would have made it. The Petty Officers Fletcher were brothers. I had a debilitating crush on them, mostly because they embodied this muscle-bound, yay America mentality that I was drawn to at the time. Plus, they were gorgeous. 2 golden Republican slabs of patriotic beef. They owned a home and a boat and were funny and smart and charismatic, and they dominated my sexual fantasies. I hadn't enlisted in the Navy so I could file medical charts and drool over petty officers Adonis and Apollo, but I learned to go with it. Besides, I was getting the GI Bill, a small paycheck, and 2 free corn dogs a month at Hometown Buffet. Still, I had imagined I'd be out on the shooting range, driving camouflage jeeps around obstacle courses, wearing BDUs with a dagger strapped to my ankle. I hoped we'd spend the entire weekend at sea. I planned on singing Navy songs, marching to cadence chants, doing push-ups and saluting people, getting the American flag tattooed across my flesh. I tend towards idealism, but the recruiter gets you all fired up to bravely serve your country and take a bullet for the president. This is an exhilarating feeling, no matter who the president is. But there was still boot camp to come. The anticipation of this was torture. At the time, I worked at Nordstrom and was perky and well-dressed. No one had expected me to enlist, and certainly no one expected me to succeed. Fuck them, I still went. And against all odds, I did succeed. I was a fucking star at boot camp. I was as surprised as everyone else when I discovered that I was really good at marching. And eating fast, and doing push-ups, and running 6 miles and sleeping on an uncomfortable cot. I was high as a kite the whole 3 months, basically fueled by my own awesomeness. I had never been good at anything, and I was good at this. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to return to San Diego and go back to being bad at stuff. Take note, the military will drive out of you any modicum of shame you have left. That's how I learned I was also good at relinquishing my dignity. This was exemplified by a specific memory I have of myself sitting on a toilet in a cramped stall, taking a shit behind a flimsy curtain in a room full of 40 women. These are the kinds of memories that stick with you. For months, we had all been a bedraggled mess, and somehow I remember that curtain more than anything. I'd been so carefree before, I would muse as I sat there. I didn't have a lot, but I had many things I valued. Family, friends, a bathroom door that locked. I even missed my roommate, an obsessively clean gay man. He was newly out of the closet, and since I was preparing for boot camp, it resulted in an odd couple environment. I exercised like a fiend, quit smoking, discontinued all drug use, and moderately reduced my alcohol intake. There are limits. Meanwhile, my roommate was turning our North Park apartment into the garden of earthly delights. I would come home late each night after working, going to school, exercising, and drinking protein shakes, and there would be 11 stoned gay men on my couch eating sugar-free Jell-O and watching Dave Chappelle show. It was my favorite part of the day, and it brought me to a significant discovery. There is no institution on the planet ridden with more empty rhetoric than the military. Sift through all the bullshit, however, and there is truth. Anyone who has sworn their life to defend their nation had better examine who their nation is. My nation was a couch full of stoned gay men eating Jell-O and watching Chappelle. At boot camp, behind that curtain, I had these moments of clarity. I had another moment of clarity the first day at boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois. I'd been traveling all morning, up at 4, flight at 6, no drinking on the plane. This was a non-stop flight to Chicago. I hate to fly. I don't take a flight from San Diego to San Jose without washing a Xanax down with a Bloody Mary. Imagine my pitiful state on the plane, sober, being taken to a place I envisioned to be a concentration camp in Siberia, which it was, only colder. I was beside myself with apprehension. Once I got to the airport, they intimidated us new recruits with a battery of humiliating physical tests. They checked our weights and heights, inspected our uniforms, gave us drug tests, gave us pregnancy tests, gave us shots. Then they turned us loose in the airport for a while so we could eat one last meal and enjoy what remained of our freedom. Then we were corralled into an official-looking bus that took us to Great Lakes, a town outside of Chicago and the home of the Naval Recruit Training Command. This is where everyone, including Navy SEALs, began their career. On the bus, nobody talked. This was assuredly because we were afraid to speak or move or breathe very loudly. The tension was palpable. This was a bus full of people who were too afraid or too busy or too important to join the big Navy. But we still wanted a shot at being brave and patriotic. We were accountants and chiropractors and people who worked at Nordstrom. We were ill-equipped for the suffering that lay ahead. When we reached the base around midnight, we were visibly unnerved. The base was stark and looming at the same time. The seemingly endless buildings were large and windowless. The ground was covered with dirty brown slush, and it was pitch dark. There was no one in sight except for us, recruits and drill sergeants. Somehow, we all accurately assessed that we weren't going to be sleeping anytime soon, and that made the demoralization complete. We strapped green duffel bags onto our backs, and I sensed that everyone was becoming lonely and regretful. It was that terrible point during a hardship where everyone's true colors start to come out, and they are often shameful and weak. Amid all this wretchedness, struggling in my big black boots, in my uncomfortable uniform, with a giant bag full of more uniforms on my back, it started to snow. And that's when I began to cry. I cried silently. The snowflakes floated from the sky and landed on my face, and I reflected on how much I wasn't in San Diego anymore. I wasn't crying because I was weak, or cold, or tired. I was crying in response to a growing ache in my belly. I had never known that I was strong. I had started to doubt that it was even worth trying, but I knew at that moment in the dirty snow that I was strong, and that the brave and heroic me was surfacing. I cried out of pure gratitude. The snowflakes mingled with the tears on my face, and I marched onward. Thank you.
Moos.